Hello, everyone. Glad to see you all here. God is good all the time. And today's topic is about herbs, generally speaking, but we'll be talking a little bit about foraging, a little bit about what to grow, and a few other points. So let's get to these topics. Now, before I get into covering my points, let me tell you about a couple somewhat more recent videos I have that I link to in the description box down below, both in the live show and also will be in the separate video that you'll see coming out. And that one is 4 tips for choosing herbs to grow in your garden and herbs that I recommend growing. It doesn't mean you have to stick with that herb or that list, or that you have to try to grow every single one of those herbs, but those are a couple of my more recent videos I'm going to recommend. So after the live show's over, you can go check out those links, and if you haven't seen those videos yet. So let's talk a little bit about books, even though I have that, more lengthy video on, building your preparedness or your self-sufficiency library. I want to show you some books again, because these are just going to be examples of the types of herb books you might want to consider having on hand. There's 3 different basic types of herb books. One would be something like Amy Fuell's Homesteader's Herbal Companion, one I tend to recommend a lot. Now, hers is just kind of a good overall herb book. She does have pictures. She has recipes. Some of them are just for treats, like, a lemon lavender bread. But she also has recipes for making, did I get the right book? Yeah, I did, because she has the chicken handbook out too, and it's the same size. She has recipes for tinctures, teas, and more. But then she also has some breakdowns of some various herbs that she grows or uses quite a bit, and their medicinal value and whatnot. So just a good general book right there. And there's other books like that, but this is the one I always come back to if you're looking for a book that has recipes, how to use herbs and whatnot. Then the other one I tend to talk about a lot, or type, which I did provide a link to this that has not just this, but a link that shows all 6 of the available US books from this company. They're very well put together. And yet 6 regions within the United States. So Midwest, Southwest, Southeast, Pacific Northwest, and so on, mountain regions. And anyway, so you can go look at that list. The thing that's nice about these is it's going to tell you, books like this, what is going to be most likely available in your own area, as well as the benefits and how to use them. Okay, so that's another type of book. And then another type, doesn't have to be the same exact one, is having some kind of herb encyclopedia. If you know what kind of what the name of the herb is you're wanting to look up, an encyclopedia is nice, because then you can just go, they're put in alphabetical order, so you can just go through there and look for, or you can go to the index and find the sampling of dangerous herbs. I got this at a garage sale for 50 cents, by the way. But anyway, you can look it up and find the exact herb you're wanting to learn more about, so that that's going to make it a lot easier than maybe these other 2 books as far as looking up something specific. But I recommend having all 3. Where to start if you were just going to buy one book? I tend to lean towards the regional herbs. I think that might be the best place to start if you wanted to start with one book and then build your library from there. It's going to depend on you. But garage sales are a great place to look. Secondhand, you can look on eBay, you can look secondhand on Amazon, and I know I always forget the names of them, but there's other like specific stores online that are used books. They're specifically a store just for used books, and you can see if you can find those on there. Oh yeah, and don't forget that you can also go to your local extension sites, either online or maybe physically, and see if you can learn more about different types of medicinal herbs, but don't just stop there. Look at foods. What kinds of foods grow wild in your area? Like around here, it's like chanterelle mushrooms, blackberries, huckleberries, those kind of things grow like crazy around here. And there's a lot more that I'm not thinking of. And there's a lot of abandoned pieces of property around here that have apple trees that people had planted. But even in our cold, wet area, apples still do really well here. I was surprised because I thought when I moved from Wenatchee, which is the apple capital of the world, pretty much, I thought that when I came here, apples wouldn't grow. Now, typically you don't see the apples put on the same kind of size they do where I grew up, but they're great apples. Our apple trees out here put out some of the tastiest apples. We just gave a bunch to our neighbor across the road, and she was like, these are the best apples I've ever had. Sometimes they're not very pretty on the outside, but on the inside, they're beautiful and tasty and wonderful. So anyway, learn about foods as well that you can forage, as well as the medicinal herbs. But yeah, that will help you when it comes to trying to figure out what to forage. Having that book that I mentioned on the regional book, as well as looking at your extension sites. But then a lot of people talk about, I tried one once and it wasn't a great app. I'd like to find a better one and maybe try that again. But you can get apps for your phone where if you see something you're curious about it, you can take a picture of it with that app, and the app will run that photo and it will be able to identify it. So plant identifying apps for your cell phone, it can be very helpful. I keep meaning to look for a new one because I really didn't like the one I had before. It just wasn't it was lame. I mean, it did help me identify one or two things, but I'm just like, I give up this app. I can't remember what it was. I just really didn't like about it. So yes, I still sell seeds. Remember, if you're interested in the seeds or any other products that I sell, just send me an email to raincountryhomestead@gmail.com and I will just shoot you out the full product list. And I'm always going to do that. I'm not going to break it up into tiny little parts and copy and paste. I'm just going to send you the whole thing because that's going to be much quicker and easier for me, because it also has the information on how to order and payment methods. Doesn't give a degree. Here's the thing about degrees. I'm just picking up tidbits. Let me just say this again. I don't base what I'm learning from someone on whether or not they have a piece of paper. I don't care. I don't care if they have some kind of piece of paper that shows they have a degree in something, because that piece of paper does not tell me anything about their actual experience or whether or not they retained any of the knowledge during the classes they took to earn that degree. To me, it tells very little about that. So I like to look at experience. I like to look at, how long somebody's been doing something. Do they actually use this stuff for themselves? Has it really helped them? Those are the things that matter. Degrees don't matter. Okay. Well, in some professions, obviously they matter, but just remember, just because that doctor or whoever has that piece of paper on their wall doesn't mean they're going to know everything they need to know about taking care of you, even if they're the best. They graduated at the top of their class or whatever. Basically, though, all a degree says is that this person crammed enough for their exams to pass the exam, to earn this degree. That's all it tells you. So I'm not trying to put down, going to school and getting an education. I'm just trying to say you can educate yourself and not, unless you need that degree to show to someone else for a job. If you're just looking at getting and giving information, that shouldn't matter. I know you guys hear me say that a lot, but I'm going to keep saying it because I think we put too much importance on that sometimes, because we think that only people only pastors who've been to Bible college know what the Bible says. No, they don't. No, they don't. There's plenty of pastors out there that only have the very limited knowledge to pass their exams, and they've never actually sat down and read the whole Bible. So that goes for anything. So you just can't trust people simply because they have a piece of paper. Okay, selecting herbs for your garden. So this is one of the videos that I did link to down below. So I'm going to go more into depth in that video, but I'll cover a little bit of this, is that when you're looking at, besides what you can forage and finding out what grows naturally around your area, if you're like me and you prefer to try to, even if I can go out there and pick a lot of this stuff wild, there's a lot of stuff I know that I'm going to use on a regular basis. I'd rather have it growing just right outside my door so I can just step outside and get it. Especially if you live in a smallish area, there's just a few basic things you're going to need to consider. What are the things you think are going to work best for you and your family? What are the things that are going to grow best for you? Just because most people can grow dandelion plantain does not mean that everybody can. But there's other herbs out there that have very, very similar benefits that may grow better for you. For example, rosemary is just a great antiviral, antibacterial herb. It helps with memory. It's got a lot of great benefits. But around here, it does not grow great. Mullein is another one. Now, I did manage to finally get these to grow, but they're not really suited for a very wet, cool climate like we have, especially the wet side of it. Because, some people just really, when I say we live in a rainy climate, and they'll say, oh yeah, so do I. And then they tell me how much rainfall they get. And I'm like, yeah, that's about what Seattle gets, which is about a third of what we get. So, what people can grow in the Seattle area or other such areas, it's still going to be very different than what we can get because of our so much rainfall. And things like rosemary don't like a lot of rain. It'll drown them through the winter. I've killed so many rosemary plants that were doing good when I bought the starts and put them in the ground, did great all summer. But once the heavy rain started in the fall that continue clear out through winter and even spring, sometimes we can have, usually 9 months of cloud and rain with a few little breaks in there. Or the rosemary wouldn't survive until I figured out the best place to grow it where it could catch the most sun, but the least amount of rain. And that's on the south side of the house, right over here. Best rosemary plant. And again, with the mullein, it was a matter of getting acclimated seeds. I tried several times. Once I got some seeds from somebody else who lives in the area who happened to have acclimated seeds, I was finally able to get some healthy plants. But these are the things you have to decide. And it might be that, like for me, I was like, I don't really care if I can grow mullein or not. I've got usnea that grows great out here. We can go gather it wild on our other pieces of property. But then after using mullein, especially with Patrick, and it was really been helping him, I decided, I really would like to grow this. And I decided I was going to keep trying. And I'm glad that I did. So at any rate, I wouldn't necessarily say give up. You can keep trying and you may finally get a good plant. Marshmallow was the same thing. I didn't think I was ever going to get it to grow. Now I get marshmallow coming up crazy in my gardens all over the place because now it self-seeds beautifully because it's totally acclimated to this area. So I get tons of marshmallow plants, tons of valerian plants as well, little baby valerian plants coming up. So you have 2 seasons, dry and wet. Yes, I would say mostly wet and a little wet are our 2 seasons. Sometimes, though, we do have dry spells. Dry enough that we, like I told you before, the year and a half ago, we had wildfires out here. I think I might have mentioned this, but your common ailments that you're looking at, like the common ailments that most people will have to deal with, some kind of rash, some kind of cold, some kind of flu, the things that commonly affect all of us at some point. These are the kind of herbs I recommend. If you can grow black elderberry or the Sambucus nigra, I highly recommend it. But rosemary is also very good for that, as is sage, as is oregano. The list is long. That's why I reshot that antiviral video, because I think that's an important one. And I was frustrated when it got removed yet again. So just reshot it. Hopefully it'll be good until they decide to change the rules again. And then also knowing what your allergies are. And some things you may not know. I was just reading the video I shot this morning that will be coming out later is part 17 in my natural healing testimonies. And this one lady was sharing how her and her husband decided to get a bunch of different herbs and basically test them on themselves first, to see if they had any allergies. This is the way you got to approach it. You can't just assume, oh, well, this worked for Heidi or this worked for so-and-so, so I'm going to take a whole bunch of it, and then find out you may have a severe allergy to that you would have had no idea of. This is why you always start small and learn about that first. Before you even start growing it, you can buy herbs in little small amounts. You don't have to get 1 pound bags. Like I always go at least with a 1 pound bag whenever I'm needing to buy an herb, because I either can't grow it or I haven't got that far yet to grow it, or I just want to try it for a while before I decide if that's something I want to grow. Now, another question I had fairly recently was organizing my herbs. How do I organize my herbs? I'll tell you something. I am not one to keep a ledger. I know a lot of prepping type people recommend ledgering, and I certainly think it's a great idea. I don't do it because, one, I don't think about it, and two, if I did, knowing me, I'd misplace it with all my other little notebooks like this. Though I've been pretty good about keeping this one. I pick up notebooks at garage sales, and then this is the one I'm using currently for my show. So I write, what the topic is, and write all my notes, things I don't want to forget to say. And when I'm done with both sides of the page, I rip it out. When that's empty, I'll pull out a new notebook. But yeah, I'm not good at ledgering. I do recommend it. That might help you. But the other thing is, when it comes to like my food storage, my herb storage, I'm always changing things up. So on my counter, a lot of times if you're watching my kitchen videos, you'll see the shelf that Patrick built for me that's got a lot of my tea related herbs. Those are things I'm most likely to use in teas. But there's more than just that. Some of those herbs are in my spice cabinet, like the cloves and the dehydrated ginger. That I get the fresh ginger from Azure Standard and then dehydrate it up into little pieces. Oh, such a great tea. Anyway, but I do try with the rest of my herbs, keep them somewhat organized by types. So I brought this box in because it was actually the handiest one. And this box, it's a canning jar box. You'll see that. All of the herbs in this box are the herbs I use in like my healing salve and my skin cream. So these are all herbs that are specifically good for skin related health. So I've got red clover, not that they're not good for other things as well, because they are, but these particular jars are for that. These are the ones I'm working through when I'm making another batch of healing salve, or I'm making another batch of my skin cream, the oils, the infused oils that then go into the salve and the skin cream. So I've got plantain, honeysuckle, flowers. These are all from my own garden, by the way. Red clover, calendula, rose petals, marshmallow, camellia, lavender, lilac, violets / pansies, comfrey, and dandelion. And there's far more herbs in that you can use, but these are the ones that I have that I use on the most regular basis for such things. So I do have them somewhat organized. You save these boxes or any kind of smaller, but produce boxes are good too. If you go, you're going down to the fruit stand, the produce stand, you're buying, in summertime, you're buying the boxes of peaches or whatever it is you're going to can up. Save those boxes. They're sturdy. They're great. I have a bunch of those that I saved, and I sort a lot of my herbs out into those. And yeah, I try to keep, for the most part, like herbs with like herbs as much as I can to help me stay a little bit organized. I think I already talked about some herbs may take trial and error when it comes to growing them. And if you try and it just doesn't work, and you just can't get it to grow, no matter where you put the plant, no matter how many times you've tried, it's time to look for another herb that does something similar. Doesn't mean you can give up entirely, but at least try to find another herb that does something similar. That's why I was really thrilled when I learned more about usnea and how easy it is to access here, especially on our property just right down the road here, just right down the road. Always usnea out there. We also get a lot of turkey tail out there too. And that's always nice. And that's a great medicinal mushroom. Oh, I do remember one more thing I wanted to mention. I didn't put in my notes, but I wanted to make sure I said this. Is another common question I get is, where do I buy the herbs that I don't already grow, or I can't grow and I want to stock up on? Well, and that's changed some through the years, but one of my favorite brands is Frontier Co-op. I used to like Star West, but I started pulling away from them because I found that they get far more of their herbs from China than Frontier does. I think Frontier, some herbs you can only get from, Chinese medicine. And so that's understandable, but I just prefer Frontier Co-op anyway. And I like getting it from Amazon because they sell most of their product through Amazon. So they have a wider variety. They have their own storefront there. And then Anthony's Goods is also, they sell most of their products on Amazon. As far as Frontier, I know you can find them in your local like health food stores and stuff. But if you're like us and you're remote and you live in a small town, and yeah, that might not be available to you. So this is why I get stuff online. And then Azure Standard now is the place I look at first and see if they have what I'm looking for. And if they do, then I'll compare the prices for a 1 pound bag of this to from Azure Standard to a 1 pound bag of Frontier. Or Anthony's Goods. Anthony's Goods tends to, and a lot of times, have a better price than Frontier, but they may not have it organic where Frontier does. So I look at all three places. If I can get it from Azure Standard for a good price and it's organic, then I usually go for that first. Then second, I'll try to compare Anthony's and Frontier. So anyway, yeah, I think that's it as far as that goes, that topic. And again, don't forget to check out those videos in the description box